The Home Ministry will launch the National Registry of Sex Offenders today, making India the 9th country to maintain such a list of convicted sex offenders. The list will include details like the names, photographs, address, fingerprints, DNA samples, Pan and Aadhar numbers of the offenders. Unlike the US, the registry will only be accessible to the law enforcement agencies. The National Crime Records Bureau will maintain the database. My colleague Tanima now joins me live with further updates on this. Tanima, for the benefit of our viewers, help us understand what is the requirement of what is going to be taken up with the registry, the National Sex Offenders Registry. What does the government want to take up with this?
That's right. This is an initiative in which we know that the decision had in fact been taken in April earlier this year to maintain a record which can be accessible to law enforcement agencies across the country, where if a person has once been convicted of being a sex offender, that record can be accessed in case that person once out of jail commits the same crime in some other state. So police agencies across the country will be able to tap into that information in case that is needed. But as you mentioned, that this list will only be open to police officials, to law enforcement agencies. As I mentioned, it will not be a public-facing website which gives out such details. What the government has in fact been telling us is that they have seen in past cases where it has become a problem for them to actually track such repeat offenders, serial offenders. In fact, what we have been told by our sources also is the fact that there will be several categories of people who have been, who are going to be listed in this registry. People who are not such big a threat, they will be tracked for, say, a time period of around 10 years. Then if somebody who's considered to be a more grave threat, but which is higher than a milder threat, that person is somebody who the ministry will be tracking for, let's say, a period of 20 to 25 years. And others who are repeat offenders or are part of an organized syndicate or gang, those people will be tracked for life. So there will be separate categories under which the MHA will be monitoring such sex offenders. So they felt that it was necessary for them to have a repository of data of such criminals who not just the ministry at the center but also police officials across the country can have easy access to. So what we are being told is that around 4.5 lakh names have in fact come to the center. These are names, records which have been collected from jails across the country, and they have all been collated. They will be categorized according to some of the seriousness of the offender. The category will be slotted according to that, and also the different states to which these offenders have in fact been booked in. What the crucial difference between what India is doing and what we have seen in some other countries like the US is that this will not be data which will be open for public to access. The ministry still feels, the government still feels that they need to keep this information confidential only for purposes of police officials or the government to have access to. It will not be easily accessible to people in general to track a repeat sex offender. So that is the format that the government is going in for at the moment.
But Tanima, also help us understand this. In that case, will the state governments, respective state governments, will they have access to this repository?
In fact, what we have gathered so far is that this is information which the center has been able to collect thanks to the cooperation given to them by jail authorities from different states across the country. 4.5 lakh names have in fact come to the center so far. That is, of course, a database which the center will keep adding to over the days and weeks and months to come. But so far they have got 4.5 lakhs 5 lakh names with which they will launch this particular registry today. They will keep adding on to it, given that the states have in fact cooperated so far. The state governments have asked their jail authorities to give this sort of information to the center in order to build this repository. So it is the center is hoping that they will be able to make it a very successful initiative, so that it not just helps the center or the Delhi police rather to track down these people, but also state polices across the country will be able to access this information as well.
Okay. All right. Many thanks, Tanima, for joining us with those details. Remember, the decision to set up this database also came in the light of several outrage that was there in the wake of several sexual assaults that have taken place across the country, and hence it was imperative for the government to take a step in a way to maintain a national register of sexual offenders.